Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and marketing expert covering woke Hollywood panic as normal movies replace propaganda movies permanently. Let's get into the story. Before we do, please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. Coming from Breitbart.com, movies for normal people save the box office. And coming from BBC.com, can Deadpool and Wolverine really save Marvel? Yes, Marvel is really on pause. Same thing with Star Wars. A lot of people have lost interest because if you try to serve a customer and you give a customer something they don't want, they're not going to be a repeat customer, and they're also not going to say nice things about you. Emma Roberts doesn't really get this yet. From Forbes, Emma Roberts says internet culture caused Madam Web to bomb. It wasn't actually made for superhero fans. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. You always have to consider when you're making things, who's the audience for this? Unfortunately for the people that want to push an agenda through their movies, that want to just focus on trying to normalize alternative lifestyles and turn that into entertainment somehow, it can never be entertainment. That will always be propaganda. From Breitbart, movies for normal people save the box office. For years, as one woke movie flopped after another, we were told by the sycophant entertainment media that the problem was everything but the movies. The strikes, the China flu, streaming, superhero fatigue. They had to even invent a term, superhero fatigue, to try to explain away how they managed to take the biggest film franchise ever, the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and destroy it by trying to push propaganda through it. So they came up with superhero fatigue. No one in the entertainment media had the moral courage to acknowledge the obvious. Normal people do not want to watch guys kiss, girl boss is girl boss, their heroes emasculated by the aforementioned girl boss, or characters judged and condemned based on their racial or sexual identity. But now the box office is back. Somehow, just like that, the strikes, the China flu, streaming, superhero fatigue are not keeping moviegoers away. What changed? Of course, it's not a difficult question to answer. If you look at the recent box office hits, they have one thing in common. There is no social or political controversy around them. In other words, they are normal movies made for normal people. And from a storytelling standpoint, if you're going to do something that's exceptional with a movie, something off-brand, something unexpected, that has to be the whole point of the movie. The whole story has to work around that. And it has to be really, really well crafted, not just an average movie, to really explain why you went off-brand with it. Even a really well crafted off-brand story might work or it might not work. It's a risk. But if they're going to just go and take a built-in franchise like a Star Wars or a Marvel and focus on representation, then the representation actually replaces the story. That's all it's about, representation, which was not what the brand was about before they did that. No, superheroes are not about being different. No, the X-Men is not about being different. No, Star Wars is not about being different. And that's why none of those changes ever worked. That's literally the physics of storytelling. You don't get to change it. Those are the natural laws. After something close to a dozen flops in a row, Disney finally released a movie that looked normal, Inside Out 2, and it's already grossed $1.2 billion. And the execs at Pixar have said, hey, we're going to stick with this now. They said they were going to stick with this normal kind of Pixar movie, going back to their traditional storytelling, going away from trying to push a personal agenda of one of the directors. They're not doing that anymore. They're going back to their standard format movies. And now with this success, Pixar is pretty much a done deal. Inside Out 2 is what people want from Disney. No gay sex, no transvestites, no pronouns, no lectures, just a nice story about relatable characters. If you study story structure, and I've been doing a lot of that lately working on my new comic book projects, then you know that Pixar is one of the best companies at doing this. They're actually the best company to produce reliable, well-structured stories even when they're not doing sequels. Despicable Me is Universal's cash cow franchise, and just over the 5-day weekend, Part 4 grossed $122 million domestic. Why? Because unlike Disney, Universal refuses to pervert its children's movies with woke, which is why it's actually been doing more business than Disney has in animation. Despicable Me has had a black female character who was a major player in a previous movie, and traditionally, that's how Hollywood has done it. They've just said, okay, we'll have a female lead, we'll have a male lead here, we'll have a black character there. They work it into the system. They don't do it at the exclusion of all the other characters, making it stick out so much for representation that the representation becomes the story, takes you out of the story. A Quiet Place, Day 1, Bad Boys, Ride or Die, John Wick Chapter 4, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and the upcoming Deadpool and Wolverine. All blockbusters or respectable hits because they did not betray the trust of their fans. Unlike, say, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, The Marvels, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, Lightyear, and more. Another lie these box office hits exposed is the smear that racist Americans want nothing to do with franchises starring non-whites. And yet there's Bad Boys Ride or Die, that we want nothing to do with female stars. And yet, Inside Out 2, that we bigots especially want nothing to do with non-white females. And yet, A Quiet Place Day 1. This is not difficult. Woke is bad storytelling. Bad storytelling is lousy movies. Bad movies is lousy box office. Yet, like any rule, there are exceptions. Barbie was woke, but it also did something no mainstream Hollywood movie has ever done in a decade. Made people laugh. The latest, Mission Impossible, tanked, but it also looked like more of the same after 7 previous chapters. People do expect some uniqueness in their concepts. Those are part of the normal challenges of entertainment, trying to figure out what people want to see, trying to make sure what you're doing is actually good enough, that it will resonate with your target audience. The premise that you're going to go out and try to make social agendas that are not normal seem normal, to take the alternative and try to take it mainstream and try to intimidate people that don't want to go with your politics and your ideology, that's not something that's been done before in entertainment on a consistent basis through major studios, because they knew they'd be throwing money away. The starting point is to make something good for an audience that wants it. And then when you have a franchise, to honor the franchise so people can continue to invest in it and talk about it with their friends and support what you're doing. Regardless of the rare exceptions, the rule has always been the rule since movies were invented over 100 years ago. But Hollywood's woke Gestapo thought they could alter human nature. 60 million people voted for Hillary Clinton, and even they refused to watch the movies. Regardless of rare exceptions, the rule has always been the rule since movies were invented over 100 years ago. You make things for people that they would want to see. From BBC.com, can Deadpool and Wolverine really save Marvel? Well, of course you can save Marvel. It's not lost. You just have to make things that people want to see associated with that brand. If Marvel never existed, or if you invented a new cinematic universe, you could still have a successful superhero movie. It would just have to be the kind of movie that people want to see. And it looks like people do want to see Deadpool and Wolverine. Lewd, rude, and dangerous to know, Ryan Reynolds' Deadpool is no cog on the Disney machine. That's what the cast and crew of the first R-rated superhero adventure in the Marvel Cinematic Universe would have us believe. It's a message that may alienate some and be gratefully received by others. But while some of Marvel's recent big and small screen offerings have flopped, Sean Levy's Deadpool and Wolverine, which imports true beloved mutants from the 21st Century Fox's X-Men film series, could be the biggest hit of the summer. Current projections suggest it'll have a $160 million opening in the US, even bigger than the recent opening for Inside Out 2, which leads 2024 so far. Could there be hidden costs, though, for Marvel Studios boss Kevin Feige in welcoming Reynolds' anti-hero into the fold? The movie's co-writers, Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, worked on the first 2 Deadpool movies and were responsible for many of the most outrageous gags. Initially sidelined by the Disney powers that be, the pair managed to get themselves rehired in 2022. The script they and Reynolds have put together apparently makes Feige part of the story. We already know from the trailers that Deadpool will quip that cocaine is the only thing Feige said was off limits. Such comments potentially undermine the authority of a hands-on producer who was once seen as untouchable, and for a certain breed of comic book fan, godlike. Back when Feige was overseeing the MCU's hot streak, Fox, Sony, and Warner Brothers were desperate to ape his success. Now Feige is the one seemingly piggybacking on other people's ideas and the butt of wisecracks that mock everything about the family-friendly multiverse he's created so far. Meanwhile, there's a tie-in between the new film and Aviation American Gin, which Reynolds used to have a stake in. A series of limited edition bottles for the new film show Deadpool welcoming everyone to the cinematic universe. A rep from Disney declared that fans would now have a chance to engage with the world of Deadpool in a whole new way. Disney's MCU has never been 100% squeaky clean. They had polyamorous dolphins in Thor: Love and Thunder, which was not part of when the best Marvel movies were being made. The F-bomb in Guardians of the Galaxy, and the umpteen dirty jokes in WandaVision. And Deadpool himself isn't 100% naughty. He has a cuddly and responsible side. Among other things, he risks his life to save vulnerable kids. And that humanizes him. You tell the other side of the story of a character when they have a dynamic, outgoing side. You humanize them. You personalize them. That Deadpool and Wolverine is the only MCU offering of the year could be read as proof that Disney has capitulated. Yes, they have capitulated. For Daily Telegraph critic Tim Roby, the appeal of Sean Levy's new movie boils down to boys fighting, as he says. Lads want to see Deadpool and Wolverine beat each other up. But is there a more romantic side to the duo's relationship? Deadpool is famously pansexual in the comics, and Reynolds, right from the start, has said he wanted to honor that aspect of the character. In the marketing campaign of Deadpool and Wolverine, posters cast the two leads as touchy-feely lovers, a la Beauty and the Beast. Writer Ryan Ghibli, whose book on queer cinema, It Used to Be Witches, is published next year, is actively irritated by such tactics. Quote, these flirtations hint at more than a bromance, yet don't get beyond the level of schoolyard sniggering, he says. Are these characters going to have sex or aren't they? If that's not a realistic possibility, and there's nothing here to spook audiences when the film is shown in countries hostile to LGBT rights, then it all feels hollow and opportunistic. No, opportunistic is trying to force things into movies that really don't belong there. Anything can happen. This is a Disney movie, and you also on the other side have Ryan Reynolds, who might just about do anything. I would not expect to see any romance between Deadpool and Wolverine unless it was done completely humorously. Of course, if they do it and they're trying to push an agenda, we'll notice and we'll be talking about it a lot on this channel. Ghibli is unmoved by the scenes in Deadpool 2 where our hero can't take his hands off his pal Colossus. Quote, surely audiences aren't stupid enough to fall for the Deadpool is pansexual lie. The first film was entirely heterosexual, except for a cartoon end credits sequence of him having sex with a cartoon unicorn. How much longer can the character go on pretending to be sexually omnivorous before he has to put his money where his mouth is? Deadpool mocks everyone and himself. He's not taking anything seriously, it seems, other than his girlfriend. If you want him to seriously fall in love with a unicorn or seriously fall in love with Wolverine, it's not going to happen in one of these movies. If it does, that will be the absolute end of the MCU. It would cost Disney billions, not the couple of billion they've lost so far. The entire value of the Marvel Cinematic Universe catalog would completely collapse because it's completely nonsensical and off-brand. So once people start to see the success of something like Pixar's Inside Out 2, it becomes more and more obvious, like, look, it's enough already. You can't keep making those personal stories of yours, trying to get everyone to agree with whatever your personal choices and ideology are. Just go back to the on-brand version of Pixar that people expect. Go back to the MCU that people expect when they go and see a Marvel movie. But in the meantime, the difference between the movies that people want to see and the movies people actually go see versus the few remaining propaganda projects as they continue to come out will become more and more obvious. And eventually they'll only be stuck with reasonable projects that are actually relatively on brand with what people expect to see. Let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Always love to see your ideas. Please be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon with another story. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.